Welcome again, my dear friends. I'm Ryan Campbell. Thank you for joining the conversation. I'm here with JoLynn Miller.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I'm probably better than hanging in there.
Well, well, you want to hedge your bets a little bit.
Yeah.
So you're hanging in there, but you're also the director of the UC Cooperative Extension for Tuolumne County.
Yep.
And then you are the 4-H youth advisor.
Yes.
For Tuolumne County. So
Yeah.
you wear a number of different hats.
Multiple hats, multiple jobs.
And I'm excited to talk to you about it because I think, we're a rural community in Tuolumne County, and so you have a pretty central role in that, correct?
Yeah, I think that my job has really blended well with a lot of different things. I have my fingers in a lot of different things in the county, and I'm just, excited to get people together based on similar, thoughts and viewpoints.
Yeah. And so let's talk about your first hat.
Okay.
So you're the director of our county's UC Cooperative Extension branch.
Yes.
What is the UC Cooperative Extension for somebody that's not familiar with that?
So UC Cooperative Extension is the California version of the extension system. In the early 1900s, the federal government created the land-grant university system, which created public universities in the states. And then past that, the Smith-Lever Act created the cooperative extension system. And the idea was to bring university staff to the rural communities. So instead of having university research happening only in the cities and only wherever those universities are, people in the communities, in the rural communities, could participate in the research, they could influence the research, and then they could learn some of the best practices that were happening on the university campuses. So that's kind of the history. We've been around since the early 1900s nationally, and it's been a really cool partnership between federal, state, and local partnerships.
Mm-hmm. And I've known about UC Cooperative Extension for a long time because I grew up on a farm.
Yes.
But for people that maybe aren't in agriculture, they don't necessarily know all the things that you're doing and how important they are. But you kind of touched on one of the things that's most interesting to me about the Cooperative Extension Network.
Yeah.
Is that you are the practical wing of all of this research that's going on in the University of California system.
Right.
People will read stories in the paper about, they're growing an ear on the back of a rat or something.
Yeah.
And, you really don't see the practical application of that when the research is going on initially, but you are at the cutting edge of that in a very practical way.
Yeah, I think two things that I want to highlight. One, when we presented to the Board of Supervisors, we talked about our new woody biomass and wood products advisor, Cindy Chen, and she's working with UC Merced on using biomass products to create construction bricks. And so instead of just having the research happening in a lab at the university, Cindy's actually going to be working with local people in Tuolumne County to help inform the decision making and things like that that's happening in the university.
So when you say biomass, so you're taking vegetation, you're taking trees, woody biomass.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. So
and what do? You chop it up and smash it into a brick?
It's really interesting. So again, because of these hats, I'm the 4-H Youth Development Advisor. I don't know the details and the science behind it, but yeah, from what I can tell from Cindy, like our new advisor, that her sole focus is on woody biomass and wood products utilization. So how do we take the forests that are overgrown and thin them so that they're safer for our residents, and then what do we do with these wood products once we're done with them, or once they're off of the forest, what do we do with them? And so she's going to help bring some of that research back to Tuolumne County and help use Tuolumne County residents to inform what's happening in these labs.
And that's not the only thing. There are other research projects going on.
Yeah,
too, right?
So we have Scott Oneto, who's an Ag and Natural Resources Advisor. We have Flavie Odoan, who's a new livestock advisor. She's brand new to the county. And they're doing some really cool projects on grazing habits of animals post-fire and grazing habits of livestock pre-fire, whether or not that helps reduce fire risk. And then there's really cool project that, again, I'm not the principal investigator on it, but what I hear from Scott and Flavie is that they're going and they're partnering with NASA, and they're looking at fields that cattle graze on, and they're taking cuttings and they're measuring the weight of these cuttings to see the protein content and the nutritional content of this grass. And they're doing it at the exact same time that a NASA satellite is flying over the fields. And the idea is to create some sort of index or indicator for ranchers to be able to figure out which fields have better quality feed for their animals during certain times based on an image provided by NASA.
That's pretty neat. I guess the benefit of that would be you'd be able to get the most calories per acre, get your livestock to the area of the field that has the most calories per acre, so that you're going to have fatter cows and
I think, yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea is always to increase profitability, increase economic stability in our community. Timber and livestock are one of our biggest kind of agricultural products. And so our advisors help try to make sure that those people in our community are profitable.
Yeah. And so the UC Cooperative Extension's that's the research side of things. That's kind of the dealing with the farmers and the ranchers and the direct ag. But you also wear the hat of the 4-H youth director. That's kind of more education and training up the next generation of farmers. How does that work?
Yeah, so UC Cooperative Extension is kind of our, for lack of a better word, our parent organization, and we have multiple programs within UC Cooperative Extension. So you've heard of the Master Gardener program. I think you talked to them recently.
We had them on here, and they gave me all kinds of tips about growing tomatoes. And
they're great.
And I think we had a connection because we all complained about the deer together.
The deer, yes.
Because it's like you put your heart and soul into this tomato plant or into your bean garden, and then it gets right to about, in a couple of days I'm gonna pick that vegetable, and then they come along and they eat it all.
For me, it's not the deer; it's the voles that eat them from the bottom. But yeah, any sort of pest, right? So we have the Master Gardener program, we have Master Food Preservers, we have the 4-H program. The 4-H program is the youth development program of Cooperative Extension. We're the largest youth development program in the nation. And the idea is that we started out in agriculture. Most of our kids in the early 1900s, the way that they were learning was via agricultural projects. But what kind of these UC researchers, or not UC, but what these researchers learned was that it's not the topic that kids learn, it's how they learn it. And so 4-H has really grown and blossomed into not only an agricultural program for kids, but we also have robotics, we have public speaking, we have theater programs, dance, anything that you can imagine. My kind of joke is that if a kid wants to learn underwater basket weaving, and we have an adult volunteer that is willing to work with that kid, that we could have an underwater basket weaving project. It really doesn't matter what the project is, it's how these kids learn, and 4-H is the leader of that in the country.
Yeah, and so these are things you're both passionate about, right?
Yeah.
You have the agriculture side and then the education side. How did you get involved in the role that you're in right now?
So as a kid, I wanted to be an equestrian veterinarian, and for a ton of reasons that didn't work out. So I ended up going to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo to be a high school ag teacher. And after 5 years, not 4, 5 years of school, I decided that high school ag teaching wasn't really meant to be, wasn't really what I wanted to do, mostly because of early mornings, and a bunch of other things. But I wanted to teach the community about agriculture, about farming, about growing your own produce. And it took me a while, but I found a program at Montana State in extension. And the entire graduate program is about the extension system. So how do we bring research-based information to the community? And so I'm one of the lucky people that has degrees, or has a job in the degrees that I went to school for. It's mind-blowing to me. I feel very lucky and blessed.
So did you grow up on a farm?
No, I actually grew up in the suburbs of Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you must have, did you yearn for like a more rural?
Yeah, I mean, I think we always had a
place?
small backyard garden growing
Yeah.
up. I was always kind of rescuing little animals. In third grade, there was an embryology project, and I convinced my mom to let me bring home the duck and chicken. So in tract housing, suburbia, Los Angeles, I had a chicken and a rabbit and a duck. And then I rode horses.
Back before it was cool, I guess.
Oh,
'Cause,
yeah.
like that, a lot of people do that now, but back in those
Yes,
days.
it was. I was the weird kid. I also rented out. I would carry my chicken and my duck under each arm, and I would rent them out to neighbors to eat snails on their perfectly manicured suburbia lawns.
Huh.
It was very fun.
That's pretty enterprising.
Yeah.
Huh. So do you have to, how do you keep them in the yard?
I
In the
just
backyard or in the front yard?
I would just hang out with them and watch them,
Okay.
and they were friendly with me. And
Yeah.
so when they were ready to go, they'd eat enough snails. I'd pick them up, and
Yeah.
they would be happy because they got their treats.
And so you're also passionate about horses, right?
Yeah, so I started riding horses with a youth organization in LA when I was 9. I've been riding on competitive drill teams since I
okay.
was 9. And my mom actually won my horse in a raffle when I was living in Montana.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, you got to tell me about that.
I-
What was the raffle for? And,
It was for the horse. The competitive drill team that I was on in Montana was hosting the statewide competition, and I probably sold 80% of the tickets to every cowboy at every rodeo that summer. And my mom bought 5 tickets for $20, and she won the horse.
wow.
And so now I have a horse, and of course, for the longest time I didn't want a horse because I wanted the freedom and I didn't want the expense. But
Yeah.
you get a horse, you have to buy a saddle, then you have to buy a horse trailer, and
Yeah.
and then I had to buy a house
Yeah.
to put my horse in. And
Yeah.
so now I've got
Not many apartment horses.
no, there's
Okay.
not apartment horses. I do have a mini donkey that has walked into the living room on occasion.
Okay.
Not on purpose. But and then I've got goats and chickens and dogs and cats.
Yeah.
I've got a little bit of a mini farm happening in Jamestown.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, and that brings me to another thing that you're involved in.
Yeah.
You are kind of the founder of the Team Elite organization for
Sure.
Tuolumne County, which is, I think it's becoming a lot more, gaining a lot more notoriety because
Hopefully.
of the great work that you're doing. Can you explain what Team Elite is
Yeah.
and how it got started?
So Team Elite's called the Evacuation of Livestock in Tuolumne Emergencies. And in 2017, after the Butte Fire, which is the fire in Calaveras County, a bunch of people got together and were trying to figure out what they wanted to do to make sure that if a fire happened in Tuolumne County, how we would be able to make sure that animals got out safely. At the time, I was a 15-year Red Cross volunteer. And then with my job, UC Cooperative Extension, I knew a lot of people in the county. And so Twain Harte Horseman,
A lot of people with horse trailers.
horse trailers, but I also knew that there was an Office of Emergency Services. I knew that we needed to contact the sheriff and the animal control to help figure out how we were going to create this organization. And so I kind of got tasked by a bunch of these folks to see if I would help start this organization. And so in 2018, I believe, is when we incorporated as a nonprofit. And so we're under animal control, and when the sheriff issues a evacuation, animal control requests us to help remove animals from fire zones. So we were at the mock fire for 3 days, I believe. The Washington fire, we had a few trailers respond.
Do you remember any events where you were involved in the evacuation of livestock in any of those? I mean, everybody remembers the mock fire and
Yeah.
the Washington fire.
Yeah, so the mock fire, we were there for 3 days. I think we took out some llamas, some mini donkeys, some horses.
There are a lot of llamas in our county.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize there
And
are
that's
a
part
lot
of
of
the
llamas,
livestock.
alpacas. Yeah.
Chickens, we went to a house with chickens. And then, after the first initial phase of getting most of the animals out that immediately need it, then what we do is we go behind fire lines and we help animals shelter in place. So there was houses.
So you're kind of on the front lines there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Washington fire, we had to go help get out, get a burned horse, and I was the one who responded, and I drove my trailer. I mean, there was still flames on the ground, and driving over hoses to help get this. Animal control had caught this horse, and we were able to load it up and get it to the veterinarian and back to its owner.
It's an area where maybe it wouldn't be the first thing people would think about in an emergency is what the heck are you going to do with your animals?
Yeah, I think one of the things, actually, our mission technically for Team Elite is to educate animal owners first and foremost, to let them know that they need to be creating a plan.
Yeah.
Not if they can't get their animals out, how are they going to have their animal shelter in place?
Yeah.
But yeah, ideally, people would have a plan, so we don't need to be called. That
Right.
in the end, that if we did our job, we wouldn't need our organization because people would have a plan for how to get their animals out.
Yeah. I want to talk a little more about 4-H.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, we kind of covered that it does a lot of different things, but it's not just agriculture related.
Sure.
And I know this because I've been invited to judge some of the
Presentation
contests, kind of like a little miniature speech contest.
Yeah.
And can you tell me a little bit about that and what's the goal there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that our goal is to teach kids about public speaking, leadership, and life skills, and public speaking is one of them. And so we do that in a variety of ways, but most kids that are involved in 4-H also do public speaking. They talk at their club meeting, they give reports on what they did at their project meeting, and then if they want to, they're not required, they can participate in what we call presentation day. So they'll practice by giving a presentation at their club. They can go to county, they can go then to regional presentation day, and then after that, there's state presentation day. These kids can earn awards, and there's a variety of different categories. But a lot of them are, some of them are extemporaneous, some of them are demonstrations. So a kid can teach you how to bake a cake, or a kid can teach you how to shave a cat, or whatever it is. They'll give a presentation and they're judged. And we are always looking for judges. Evaluators is what we call them now. And we thank you for your volunteering to help us, because we can't do it without people volunteering their time.
Well, it just struck me. It's amazing, seeing a kid that's in 7th grade giving a full speech and just the confidence that it builds in kids.
It blows me away every time I watch them.
I mean, they're really an exceptional group of kids that are in 4-H. Like, I don't think people realize that they do so many different things, and it's not just about agriculture. It's kind of building life skills.
And what I want.
And I'm biased on this.
Yeah.
But kids that grow up in agriculture, they get things a little bit quicker than kids the city kids, I think.
The city kids.
Yeah.
Coming from a city kid.
Yeah. Well, it's the self-reliance though.
Yeah.
Because if you aren't up in the morning taking care of those animals, making sure they're fed, bad things happen. Nobody else is going to do it, and it's that responsibility and that consistency and knowing you have to be on time, and those are skills that apply in so many different areas throughout your life. And so if you're building those when you're in 7th and 8th grade, you're so far ahead of the curve.
Well, I think you said something that I really wanted to kind of touch on, is that you said these 4-H kids have all of these awesome skills, and I want to really make it clear that because they're 4-H kids, they have these awesome skills. It's not because they have these skills that they're in 4-H. And so really 4-H is open to anybody. And just because you maybe aren't a good public speaker in 7th grade doesn't mean you can't be in 4-H, because we'll help you explore those things. We'll help you explore your sparks. You may not be a good public speaker talking about rabbits if that's not your passion, but if your passion is video games, we're going to be able to help you make a speech around video games, right?
Yeah.
And so it really, again, it doesn't matter what the topic is. It's how these kids learn, how they're teaching others as well. There's this whole component of teen leaders in 4-H.
And there are video games for farming now.
I know, everything. Well, no, I think
there's like sim tractor where you can drive a
Well, what's
attractive.
cool is that there's all this ag technology now that kids literally can be doing robotics on a screen, driving a tractor down a field. And so,
and an actual robotic tractor is
right, not just a video
wow.
game, but right, there's all this ag tech that's happening, precision agriculture that's happening. These kids that are excited about robotics and video games can get a job in the agriculture sector by doing video games, but then helping produce food for America.
Yeah. And that's kind of that. I guess that's the next wave of technology, because you look at, 100 years ago, you had 90% of the population in some shape or form was involved in agriculture, supporting agriculture. Now that's dwindled down to just a fraction.
Right.
And so what are going to be the key areas that those kids are going to need to get education in to be able to support agriculture and, keep our state as the salad bowl of the nation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the ag tech is going to be really huge. But then, the other thing is the pandemic really changed how people are thinking about their food, right? So a lot more people put in gardens. A lot more people are raising chickens in their backyard. A lot more people are kind of doing this homesteading thing. And so I do think that we're kind of seeing a little bit of a resurgence in knowledge of agriculture just because people are starting to grow their own a little bit more than they used to.
If somebody's interested in those kind of fields, do you get a lot of calls about that? People that are interested in homesteading. I know you do. You had like a educational series about like doing canning and preserving food, and that. What are some of the things that people can call up the UC Cooperative Extension and get information about?
Well, I mean, so we have advisors in forestry where we're helping prescribed burn associations and teaching people how to do prescribed burning on their property. We have a forest stewardship program where we're teaching forest landowners how to better keep their forest healthy on their property. We have a livestock advisor that she's planning on doing like homesteading 101 or how to raise your livestock 101 classes. We have a food systems advisor, and Scott is our ag advisor. We're hiring an integrated pest management advisor, so that person is going to help people with pests. And then again, our Master Gardener program is going to teach people how to grow their own food. Our 4-H program is going to help get kids involved in leadership. We have a Master Food Preserver program where we teach people how to not just can, but freeze or cook or dry their produce to keep it longer, reduce their dollars, the dollars that they're spending if there's less food waste and all of those sorts of things. Our Master Food Preservers do home pressure canner testing to make sure that your pressure canner is at the correct PSI to make the food safe.
It's funny you talk about the food preservation. I've been watching that show Alone. Do you ever watch that?
No.
Okay, they take they take people.
Yes.
And they put them in the wilderness, and they only get to bring 10 items with them.
Yes.
And so occasionally somebody will catch a big game. They'll shoot a moose or a deer or some kind of large animal. But the problem they face is that they can't preserve it, so they generally will smoke the meat or do different things to kind of preserve it. But it's just funny that you think food preservation, the way we do it in modern society, is very reliant on technology.
Yeah, what I think is cool about what the Master Food Preserver program is doing is kind of connecting with the Master Gardener program. So what if you grow 50 onions? Now what? Now what do I do? Or so what if tomatoes are great, but there's only so many tomatoes I can eat in a day in the middle of summer. And so what can I do so that I can have canned tomatoes up until December, January, or whatever it is? It's saving our community members money. They're not having as much food waste. Of course, there's less going to the landfill, things like that. So food preservation is a really cool topic that UC Cooperative Extension covers.
Yeah, it just tastes better when you make it yourself anyway.
Maybe you. I'm not a great cook.
But
fresh. I'll eat tomatoes off the vine.
Yeah.
That's always good.
Yeah. So if somebody has questions about food preparation or preservation or some of these other things, how do they reach you?
So our website is cecentralsierra.ucanr.edu. CE stands for Cooperative Extension, so cecentralsierra.uc, and then UCANR is University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources. And then our phone number is 209-533-5695. Okay. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned volunteering. How would somebody, if somebody was interested in volunteering either for 4-H or
Yeah.
with UC Cooperative Extension or some of these other things you do. Are there opportunities for people to do that or get more information about it?
Absolutely. So 4-H volunteers, we take 4-H volunteers throughout the year. There is a fingerprinting and an education process that volunteers have to go through, but
Because they're working with kids.
because they're working with kids, obviously, for the safety of it. Yep.
And there's going to be a volunteer fair coming up too, right?
Yeah, so the volunteer fair, oh my goodness, I have my hands in so many things. But the volunteer fair is next Thursday. It's the March 30th from 3:30 to 6:30. And so Leadership Tuolumne County put that on. I was part of that class in 2018 that helped start the volunteer fair. And so we were going to all of these organizations and they all had the same need. They all needed volunteers. And so we created the volunteer fair 2018 and 19. And then we had a bunch of different, we had the not the mock fire, we had the, I believe it was the Washington fire and the pandemic that kind of closed it down for 2020, 21. But we're bringing it back. There's going to be over 70 organizations that are looking for volunteers, including Master Gardeners, including 4-H.
Wow.
Yeah. So if anybody's interested in volunteering, not only with UC Cooperative Extension, they can find an organization that they can volunteer with at the Tuolumne County Volunteer Fair.
We talk about that on the show a lot, that this county runs on volunteers. And that was one of the biggest things I was afraid of during the pandemic, is that all these people that volunteer their time and contribute, a lot of them are older, and a lot more of a vulnerable population, and so they were staying home.
Yeah.
And so how do we keep these things going? And so now now that things are opening up again, we need a new crop of people to come out and volunteer, and people our age,
Yeah.
volunteer more. I don't see as many, 30, 40, and I won't say which one I am. 30s or 40s.
I think one of the things about volunteering, me too, don't worry. One of the things about volunteering is that I think people think that it needs to be this long-term commitment because they see the people that volunteer, 20 hours a week or every week, 2 or 3 hours a week. They see these people that have their hands in everything and they think, oh, if I start, I have to do that. But volunteering doesn't have to be that way. Volunteering can work within your schedule. And a lot of these organizations are going to be looking for volunteers for a variety of different things. And so, whether you can give 1 hour a month or maybe you can give 3 hours on the first Saturday of every month, whatever you can give, there's going to be an organization that's going to be able to utilize you. Some of them, they're going to want you to do a little bit more. But I just want to say volunteering is so beneficial. We know this for the community, but there's research out there that shows that volunteers live longer than people who don't volunteer. They're happier, they're more connected, they're just a healthier person, people who volunteer. And then another really benefit of volunteering is if you're kind of getting back into the workforce, either because you've been out because of the pandemic or whatever it is, or maybe young college students, becoming a volunteer that's utilizing a specific skill set that you're an expert in can really build your resume, right? And so if you have an expertise in marketing, maybe you volunteer a few hours a week for a nonprofit that needs somebody to do marketing skills, and then you can add that to your resume and hopefully make yourself look more marketable to prospective employers. It's a win-win.
It's better it's that old saying, it's the more you give, the more you get back. So that's the volunteer fair is March 30th, which is a Thursday. And when does it start?
3:30 to 6:30.
3:30 to 6:30.
It's at the fairgrounds.
At the Motherland Fairgrounds.
And if we have a taco truck. No, it's not a taco truck. We have a taco stand.
Okay.
So you don't have to decide between dinner and coming.
Okay. So you can get some tacos. That's
some tacos, eat tacos, and then walk through the fair.
Yeah. Well, JoLynn, thank you so much for your time. It's been great talking to you, and this is really good information.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Come back anytime.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
Take care.
Well, and thank you for joining us as well. I'm Ryan Campbell. Please join us again next week. We'll have another interesting conversation about Tuolumne County, and I hope you'll join us. Take care, everyone.